Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers? What's up, guys? Alpha here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review of the spoilers for chapter 240 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And for lack of a better term, or a more qualifying experience, have you ever felt like you're reading a fever dream? Like you're reading someone just genuinely losing their good mind? Like you're just witnessing insanity put to page? Because honestly, that is basically how I would exactly describe it. This just feels so weird. And I can't tell, because it's late/early when I'm recording this, so I can't tell if this is me enjoying it because it's insane, or me being in denial because it's insane. But let's not waste any more time. And let's hop right into the spoiler discussion. What's up, guys? It's here. Fun fact. I have it on me. And I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. I'm probably going to be speaking very softly. And in this sort of even tone. Half because of confusion, and half because I need to be silent right now because I'm trying to record this super duper early because I have a very, very complicated schedule today. But with that being the case, we open up and we do get a flashback before the events of 239 and even before the events of Satoru's end. And I will admit this right off the start with the Raws. The Raws, they don't look the worst in terms of their image quality. But in comparison to my consistent, next level, two-handed twist, Omega Giga super slop that I was giving the art of 238, I don't know. From the first page, something about this chapter just don't look right. And once again, I think the biggest contributor to this is Meme. Something about her not having her hair detailing just messes with me so much. It is it just doesn't look, it looks like someone slapped a loaf of bread dough on top of her head instead of that actually being hair. And Yuta Okotsu, a man who has not appeared since 236, so a solid 5 chapters, he's here, but he's looking extra round. I'm not sure. Once again, I will not show images from these spoilers themselves because I like my channel. I really, really do. So give me some time on that. But I don't know, something about the art in this chapter, and I hate to say, I wish I could say it got better. Let me take a quick scan through the entire chat. No, it just feels off, and I can likely excuse it for the fact that this is filler. This is it's at least so far. Maybe this fight will switch in 241, but at least from my understanding, this fight is pure liquid filler. Canon filler, but it's filler. I'm not sure how to feel about that. Part of me is ew, filler. But the other part of me is huffing the most quality copium ever. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. But of course, you may be wondering, why are we flashing back? And at least from, once again, these super giga rough translations, apparently they're discussing what they should do about Kenjaku before the Battle of Gojo versus Sukuna ends. What should be their move with him? Because unfortunately, as much as Sukuna is the more powerful and the more ever-present threat who could literally slaughter them all, as they are all contained within Shinjuku at the moment, yeah, Kenny's still an issue. An issue that on his own was more than powerful enough to wipe out a special grade curse, and take Tengen, who is likely a special grade, either curse or sorcerer in their own right. And he did that all on his own. So Kenny running around is still an absolute Omega threat. And of course, there are a couple different options to discuss here. All options of different varieties, though admittedly we do know which option they went with. And I'm gonna say this again, it was happening a lot versus the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, and it's something that I get it, and it raises interesting questions, but I don't like it because it eats up page time. Unnecessary flashbacks or unnecessary cuts to this group. Like, don't get me wrong, I love any extra characterization we can get for Angel, any extra characterization we get for Yuta, Kusakabe, Mei, Hikari. Any extra stuff is nice, but especially for a manga, well, the mangaka, I was going to say a mangaka, but the mangaka who seems very interested in moving the plot forward, moving the plot along, versus in the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, and now he seems very keen. Like this opening section that tells us nothing new except it hints at something. This opening 4 pages out of this, what, like 20 pages chapter, a whole fifth of the chapter is wasted on stuff we could have assumed. I mean, it technically gives us new information in terms of how this happened. This was a conscientious decision made by the group versus what a lot of people were theorizing was just Takaba messing around, considering he's not being monitored at all. But, I mean, nice. That's cool and all. Most of us assume this anyway, Gege. You're just not confident in this fight, Gege? We'll see. But with that being the case, there are numerous different discussions and numerous different options that come with dealing with Kenjaku. They bring up a relatively easy one. Well, at first. Essentially, the first major issue that Angel, very specifically Angel that Hana brings up, is what if Kenny just shows up when Gojo loses, right? What if instead of having to run the jump against Sukuna, Kenny shows up and double, well, not, I guess it wouldn't be a reverse jump. It'd be like 2 people with like how many curses he has. It would kind of be an immediate reverse jump. What if he shows up right after Gojo loses? Which is sad, very sad that apparently even before Gojo fell, they were confident that Gojo was going to fall. Once again, they're talking hypotheticals at this point in the timeline. And we realize that essentially the cast has realized that, no matter what, it's a lose-lose scenario. But it'd be better to take care of Kenny now while Gojo versus Sukuna is still going on versus waiting. Because one or two things is going to happen. Either A, Kenny shows up and makes the battle against Sukuna much more difficult after Gojo loses, or B, Kenny sits on the sidelines, lets everyone wear themselves out against Sukuna, and then comes in and low diffs them all when they're super low on stamina. Yuta's burnt his 5 minutes, Akari's running out of luck, all that stuff like that. Essentially, they need to take care of Kenny now. They want it to be a simultaneous defeat, but the only thing is, well, who do you send? What's the manpower to be used? Because essentially, anyone who's actually viable against Kenny is also necessary for Kenjaku, whether that be Hikari or Yuta or Maki. But at the same time, the rest of the fodder who could be sent would be worthless. Kusakabe, Meimei, Momo, it'd be essentially irrelevant to send them. They just turn into cannon fodder. So they're in this weird predicament. And they bring up an idea that's, honestly, I would have gone with, and it's interesting because this character does not appear in this chapter at all, despite her being mentioned. I don't think she shows up once, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she doesn't show up once this entire chapter. Kusakabe brings up the idea of just sending Maki, because Maki's the easiest thing, right? For all intents and purposes, Maki is Kenny's worst matchup next to Yuta. The thing with Yuta is that he can very specifically, with the 5 minutes active on Rika, he can very specifically turn off one of Kenny's techniques, and that is Curse Spirit manipulation. Curse Spirits have shown no resistance to simply being told, nah, and thusly all Yuta needs to do, slide that little curse seal on his mouth, yell out, nah, and then anything Kenjaku throws at him will consistently just fall. Who knows, maybe even Kenny himself could take some damage from a year of extra training Yuta Okotsu, considering he's watching him so fervently. But with that being the case, Maki would actually be a pretty good option. When you think about it, not only would Kenjaku, as he mentioned in his last chapter in 239, be unable to sense her, only be able to sense her blade, which, who knows, maybe she doesn't even, well, no, she would need it. Unless she's going to go in there and, rip, she's going to, rip Kenny's head off. But With that being the case, Maki, outside of her blade, cannot be sensed. Maki likely has some sort of resistance or immunity to his domain. Maki should have more than enough speed and has just the right kind of tool in the Soul Split Katana to immediately negate and destroy anything Kenny has to offer, whether it be a curse or Kenny themselves. And in my opinion, I would have, and this is where we differ in terms of my thoughts versus the Jujutsu cast thoughts, I would have sent Maki alongside Takaba, not just Takaba. Because the thing is, right, Maki just needs a distraction. Maki just needs something. It's something I'll talk about in its own video, but Maki could, depending on whether or not you think the Soul Split Katana would work on Sukuna, Maki could actually execute Sukuna while in Higuruma's domain if that pops off. Because she would not be held to the rules of anti-violence, and Sukuna would not be able to fight back. He would be stuck in his little court position. So all Maki has to do is sneak him. We've already seen that Maki can catch him off guard. So, if Maki could hypothetically be a win con against Sukuna, what do you think she could be against Kenjaku? Especially if you go with the idea that Kenjaku's stats actually aren't any better than Geto's. If you go with the common idea that, no, they literally just have the same stats, it's just that Kenjaku's a way better and way more experienced fighter. Geto never surpassed Toji. And guess who's currently equal to Toji? And guess who has a weapon that could immediately load if Kenjaku? It'd be Maki. And while I do get sending her low may be a mistake, because once again, who knows? And at this point in time, they don't actually know when Gojo versus Sukuna is going to end. So thusly, they kind of just have to freestyle it and hope that she's available once she gets back. It could be a quick fight. She could just run in, take his head off, and leave. But at the same time, if she gets into an extended war of attrition, then you run into the issue where, we need Maki back because she's one of the most powerful fighters, one of Jujutsu High's heavy hitters. Hikari's busy with Urume. Yuta's busy stalling Sukuna. He could use some support alongside Itadori and Higuruma, whereas Maki, she's still fighting Kenjaku. So ultimately, sending off a confirmed heavy hitter is something that they aren't down with, though admittedly, I would have gambled it. I see why they don't, but I would have gambled it, because right now, everything is a gamble. As they clearly believe themselves, Gojo versus Sukuna is a gamble. Once again, Mei with her no defined dress, no defined hair. I don't know why Geki just hates drawing this woman now. We see that Angel actually ends up recommending Takaba, and Takaba alone, not any dual strategy, nothing like that, very specifically just Takaba. And we see that both Hikari and Kusakabe are like, you want us to send who to do what? And with that being the case, Angel ends up revealing Takaba's curse technique. This is the only bit of unique or interesting information to come from this chapter. Somehow Angel knows Takaba's technique, but no one else does. Why? Is this a hint that Takaba is using the technique of someone previously who existed? I don't think so. Kenny doesn't recognize the technique. Takaba's a modern sorcerer. I have no idea why Kenny doesn't know Takaba's technique, but Angel knows it. I know they had a direct interaction with the technique when Hana was dropped off a building, but dog, really? Why does Angel know it? I honestly would have been more comfortable with Takaba just being told by Satoru, because that's a pre-established thing. These Six Eyes are able to read the nature of techniques inherently. That is actually one of their many benefits as a jutsu. Not jutsu. I was about to call them a dojutsu. As one of their many benefits as a jujutsu, they can tell techniques. And unless, for some reason, Gojo only told Hana about the nature of Takaba's technique, it feels weird that they would know it when someone like Kenny clearly admits in this chapter that he's never seen it before. Same in 239. So, I don't know. It's an interesting piece of information, but if anything, it just feels like it contradicts everything we know about Takaba and his placement in the timeline and the rarity of his ability, the comedian. I can chalk it up to the fact that Angel had a direct interaction with Takaba's technique, and their own technique very specifically disables other techniques. So maybe they have an intrinsic understanding of how stuff like that works. Maybe. I honestly have no clue. It still feels kind of weird. However, of course, we cut back to Sukuna versus Takaba. And not Sukuna, Kenjaku versus Takaba. And ultimately, we see Takaba kind of just laughing off anything that Kenjaku does. My apologies. It's just, I've been recently 100% informed and confirmed that Takaba is just genuinely only wearing half a jumpsuit. He's not. He's. What does that count as hanging free? Does it count as something else, bro? What, half hanging free, hanging half free? I have no idea, dog. He's just slanging. He's just slanging right now. However, of course, Kenny's attacks are essentially ineffective, and these are the centipede curses that Geto used in JJK 0, and we saw Kenjaku use to scare the leaders of another country, to put it very, very nicely, a while back. And these centipede-like curses are just doing absolutely nothing. Takaba's literally laughing them off, and he has tears in his eyes from how much of a good time he's having. So Takaba, nigh on indestructible. Very interesting still, though. I wonder how his technique really factors into that. Because a lot of people are assuming he just has RCT, right? Because any phenomena he does not find funny gets erased from existence. But if so, I think it may only be in regards to himself rather than the entire world. Because I don't think he'd find Kenjaku funny, so Kenjaku should be wiped from existence. I don't think he should find Sukuna funny, so Sukuna should be wiped from existence. So there has to be some sort of limit. If it is an RCT-based property to where, well, he just erases things that don't work, or he doesn't find funny, then there's got to be some sort of upper limit for it, why Sukuna and Kenjaku both still exist. However, of course, Kenjaku just starts to think. He's like, okay, interesting. My CT was rejected, ignored, completely shut down. But, well, not necessarily shut down, but essentially the effects of the curse technique were non-existent. It's like they never happened. And we see that Takaba, enjoying himself and locked into the battle, once again manipulates reality as he says, "You can't win against me." And suddenly, Kenjaku's wearing like an American flag bandana and sunglasses. I don't get the joke. It's got to be a reference to something that I just don't get, because I either haven't seen it in a while, or I'm simultaneously too old and or too young. American flag plus sunglasses combo. I don't know. It reminds me of that one guy, but I have no idea anything else. But with it being the case, we see that Takaba, unfortunately, has a very, very short list of abilities that he can hide from Kenjaku, as Kenjaku pretty much immediately surmises, Takaba's CT must be about creating phenomena where he forcefully materializes his imagination. And that is true. Sure, it misses out on the funny aspect, but as we see, Kenny's going to have that on lock as well. And we see that ultimately, as powerful and as strange as Takaba is, posted up very menacingly, ultimately, Kenny believes a fundamental truth of the universe, that no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter how powerful the player or the sorcerer, there's always a weak point and a hole in a person's technique. And of course, if there's any character who could figure out the weakness of the comedian within short order, it would be the man who's been alive for the most consecutive years in Kenjaku. And we see that as Takaba does the Vegeta pose again, a lot of people are calling him out on doing the Vegeta pose at the end of the last chapter, pointing the thumb towards himself, and I didn't notice it, but now I see it. And we see that Takaba actually ends up explaining that, low-key, your boy was kind of like that. I ended up earning the #1 spot for a solo comedian in Japan. I'm him, which to me just implies that there are many solo comedians. Everyone's a duo or something, because what was the competition, bro? What were you fighting against? Rocks? But with that being the case, we see that Kenjaku's kind of just like shocked, confused, maybe even a little bit disgusted. And we see that ultimately Takaba realizes that, wait a minute, hold on a second. You know what I'm talking about. Kenjaku very specifically is able to recognize some of the funny stuff he talks about. And Takaba's like, oh, wait a minute. I know what a fella like you needs. Hold on. Let me cook a little bit. I know exactly what you need, big dog. And once again, using that sheer simple imagination, he literally writes, I want to laugh on Kenjaku's face, which Kenjaku does visually react to. Like, I'm not sure if the mirror he spawns in is like a curse, or like Takaba accidentally gave him a mirror to look at himself. With that being the case, we see that Kenjaku, while shocked and concerned, isn't actively too worried. Because once again, I mentioned this in Monday's video. Like, there really is no win con for Takaba. There appears to be a win con for Kenjaku that shows up later in this chapter. But specifically for Takaba, there is no win con. Unless he literally runs his opponent out of cursed energy, there's literally no way to win. Because he can't. I don't even think he can knock people out. I think he's that soft. So he needs new powers or something in order to make this work. Despite his pseudo-immortality through the manipulation of reality, it's not going to be enough against Kenjaku. And we see a reference to a joke that it's like 2 or 3 years old now. It's been maybe not 3 years, but like 2 whole years old now. Jeez. And it's the let me be your Wi-Fi joke. And once again, I'm going to bring it up. The art quality here, it's just you can tell the stark difference between that gay and this gay. Like the Wi-Fi gag just looks a whole lot softer and more subdued and simple in comparison to the wide-eyed magic that was in the original. I don't know. I wonder, like, there's no break next week, but Gege, do you need one? Do you need to relax? You need to rest that little heavenly palm of yours? It's okay. It's okay. We'll still be here. Like, take your time, man. And of course, we see that Kenjaku's like, oh, dog, I'm getting sick and tired of this, dog. Please just delete yourself from existence, bro. You suck and are disgusting. But we see that Kenjaku, once again, and I do like this. If this chapter has one thing that I do genuinely 100% enjoy without a shadow of a doubt, is Kenjaku's lived experiences coming in ways that are not based around Jujutsu or based around battle. Because ultimately, in order to do what Kenjaku does in this chapter, he just ends up, ironically, he ends up explaining the joke. And ultimately, why the joke isn't even funny. The Be My Wi-Fi joke. It has a very similar setup to another kind of joke, but that joke actually has setup. Takaba's joke is just there. It kind of goes back to another principle that relies on setup. Obviously, what I'm about to mention and humor are two fundamentally different things, but the Alfred Hitchcock approach when it comes to building suspense. If you let your audience know that there is La Bomba underneath the table, then throughout that entire scene, however long you drag it out for, it could be a minute, it could be 10, the audience is on the edge of their seat, itching and scratching for La Bomba and trying to get the characters to leave the situation because the characters are ignorant. But with this case, there's no room for ignorance, as Kenjaku literally breaks Takaba down fundamentally. That freedom, that understanding that comes from Takaba using his ability is only hard countered by Kenny's cold, hard logic. The man's been around for nearly 2,000 years. He's seen his fair share of comedians. He's seen it all. Oh, wait, sorry, I kind of stumbled away from the Hitchcock comparison. But once again, you let your audience know La Bamba is coming, then they shall be locked in with suspense and fear. However, the opposite solution is to just drop La Bamba. It can be out of nowhere. You don't tell the audience anything, just suddenly, magically, La Bamba goes off, and then boom, everything's detonated. The execution on both is what determines their quality, but on average, I'd say you want build-up. And the thing that Kenjaku is very specifically critiquing Takaba on for his Wi-Fi joke is the fact that there was no build-up. There's no hint. Like, he referenced some other popular Japanese joke. He's like, dude, you gotta be able to set up, you gotta be able to lay down the brickwork before you start trying to build a house on top of it. You can't just start building a house with no brickwork, no foundation. And he is actually pretty much right. Once again, it's weird. It's so weird, especially considering Kenjaku and Takaba seem to teleport to this weird alternate space where Kenjaku seems to be interviewing Takaba for some sort of show or something like that. Like judging him on Sorcerer's Got Talent or something like that. But with that being the case, Takaba is ultimately failing because Kenny just has a better understanding and better comedic timing than him. And we see this when Takaba ultimately gets jabbed straight in the stomach. He's broken from that false reality that he instated when Kenjaku simply elbow checks his gut and sends him flying. And Kenjaku ends up realizing, okay, this is how it works. The only way the comedian functions is if the user is confident, 100% confident in that what they're about to do or say will be funny. That is it. As long as he has the will, Takaba can will anything into existence, but he needs to be 100% locked in on that. There are so many jokes I could make. I will not make the jokes. But with that being the case, that is a pretty massive nerf for the comedian. Essentially, if you're able to get in Takaba's head one way or another, you can just drastically weaken him. It appears that even his pseudo-immortality somewhat disappears just based on the interaction Kenjaku has with them, believing that, oh, he'll go retrieve the body later. But with that being the case, we see that Takaba gets back up, and he tries to fight back. It's funny, I've heard this before, not just for comedy, but in a lot of other different places where, like, people say, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it's all for. It literally doesn't matter if you don't find it funny. As long as one person or other people find it funny, that's what really matters. And Kenjaku kind of brings up a interesting yet valid point. He's like, dude, if you can't make this audience of one laugh, what makes you think you're going to make any audience laugh? And once again, it's weird, right? Because Kenjaku's not wrong. He's not wrong in any way, shape, or form. He's actually right. Like, dude, if you can't make Kenny laugh, who are you going to make laugh? Kenny's the guy who's laughed at some of the weirdest things in the series. But you can't make him laugh, dog? I don't know. I'm getting a run back of the Yorozu and Sukuna battle where apparently Yorozu just couldn't give it her all. So, like, you remember what happened to Yorozu? She was jobbed. And I hope Takaba doesn't get jobbed. However, we see that Takaba tries to regain the upper hand by ordering a funny face contest. And I'll admit, neither of these faces are particularly pleasant. But the longer and longer I look at Kenjaku's face, the more and more I'm convinced I'm losing portions of my soul. Like, I don't know how this is supposed to be funny on either end. Takaba looks extremely constipated, and Kenny looks. It is just, I can't take my eyes away. I'm going to scroll. However, with that being the case, this whole face-making competition was the result of a if you laugh, you lose kind of contest. And of course, Takaba being too weak to the funny faces, he ends up laughing. And Kenjaku just hits him with a clean right hook. Once again, these attacks are actually doing damage because the confidence and clarity that comes with Takaba's regular mentality just isn't there. He's fallen apart bit by bit, piece by piece. We see Takaba laid out on the ground, hugging it. He's like, dude, what is happening? What is going on? And then Takaba realizes that he may not be as funny as he thinks. He tries to gaslight himself into saying, no, I am funny. I've got to be funny. My mommy told me I'm funny, so I have to be funny for the sake of my people. But unfortunately, the reality of this world, the darkness within, allows Takaba to see something that man may have never wanted to see. In the bushes, buried. Well, not even buried, just lost in bramble, lost to time. An instant, really. Takaba finds Hazanoki, the man who, admittedly indirectly, saved his life. He finds Hazanoki out cold. Well, not out cold, out of life, on the ground, eyes rolled up, completely disrespected and desecrated. There was no dignity or respect. Kenny didn't even bother trying to have one of his curses munch him up like he did with the Zen Clan massacre. Nope. That was it. And we see that Takaba's resolve finally begins to break down, finally begins to go away piece by piece. And Kenjaku merely smiles and says, "It's wrong. Laugh. You're a comedian, aren't you?" And we see that Takaba now begins to question his role as a comedian. Is he truly funny? Is he not funny at all? Was his whole life a waste of time and a lie? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. Now, but this chapter, it feels... I gave a play-by-play, and I don't know. It feels... Once again, it goes back to the big F word. It feels like filler. It feels like filler. It feels like... It doesn't feel like it should be happening right now, even though it should be happening right now. You don't go any further down the timeline with this battle unresolved. So this chapter needs to happen. Takaba getting humbled needs to happen. Kenjaku showing off his battle IQ, fantastic, needs to happen. Seeing Kenjaku show off his humorous IQ needs to happen. There's quality stuff within this chapter. But I'm not sure if it's because of the art, if it's because of some of the writing that I literally cannot read, anything like that. It feels almost... How do I put it? It's necessary, but it feels like it isn't. It's like getting your teeth cleaned at the dentist. Like, yeah, you're supposed to do it, and you will do it because you're kind of required to in order to make sure your teeth don't fall out. Like, do you want to do it? That's how I feel about this chapter. This feels like almost an obligation versus something I'm genuinely excited for. And I think it's mainly because Gege is keeping it so small scale. Like, Takaba bouncing between numerous massive building size curses would be cool. Takaba whipping out big massive reality changes could be cool. There could be that's the thing, there's so much potential. We could get a Takaba awakening, we could get a Kenny awakening, we could get the accidental start of the merger. There's so many things that could transpire that it's undeniably chaotic, which is nice. That's the thing, right? I love Jujutsu Kaisen for its chaos. I love it for its mania. I love it for its insanity, really. But when I look at a chapter like this, it just feels like padding. It genuinely feels like padding. And I appreciate some good padding here and there. But here and now, I don't know, bro. If you're not going to give us the battle you promised us 3 weeks ago, then give us a spectacle. Don't give... I mean, I get it, it's Takaba's whole character. Don't give a sports room, a funny face, and tall height. I don't think that's enough. So, I don't know. This is such a weird thing. I assume a Takaba awakening coming out, by the way. I do generally think that's going to happen. How? No idea. But I do think that something's going to happen. Something's going to happen with Takaba. I don't think he's going to fall here. The fact that he's still alive at the end of this chapter is a testament to his survivability and also his pseudo mentality. So I'm assuming he's going to do something crazy like pick up Thor's hammer or something, like just spawn it out of nowhere and start going absolutely wild. I'm going to make that assumption mainly because I hope Takaba can cook. However, those are my thoughts on the spoilers for chapter 230, 240. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below. You support for as low as $1 month. Get the exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also have to become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the saddened comedian in the comment section down below. The saddened comedian. I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Wakanda Plays, Red Wolf 4765, and Burp Skills. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demex LND. And I'd like to give a fat, hefty thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And I'd like to give another hefty, dafty thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And another big fat scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.